Hey everyone, test 2 is right around the corner this Friday, so just wanted to make a quick announcement about the upcoming test. And here's the test review sheet that I posted on Blackboard. And as you see, it covers material from the next 4 chapters, chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 5, if you remember, we broke that one in half. That was the elasticities chapter, and that was comprised of 2 homework assignments 5 and 6. So here's a rough breakdown of what to expect on the upcoming test. You'll see 19 questions from Chapter 5, 10 questions from Chapter 6, 5 questions from Chapter 7, and 8 questions from Chapter 8. So all I've done is I've pulled up those 4 homework assignments and just kind of go over a couple of highlights from each of those assignments. But first, for Chapter 5, elasticities, it's really important that you guys understand the difference between the 4 different elasticities types. There are the price elasticity of demand, the price elasticity of supply, income elasticity of demand, and the cross price elasticity of demand. In addition to those 4 concepts, you need to know the link between how the price elasticity of demand influences revenues for a company. And real quick, if your demand is inelastic, or the consumers are said to be not responsive, then if you raise the price, that will increase your revenue. Whereas if you have elastic consumers, those who are responsive to price changes, and you decide to raise your price on these guys, that's going to drive your revenues lower. But keep that in mind when you're studying for this test. Also, you should know the difference between a normal good, a luxury good, inferior good, necessary good, and all of these are measures that we use the income elasticity of demand to answer. The substitutes and complements, we use the cross price elasticity of demand to answer questions about if goods are complements or substitutes. We look at the cross price number, and whether it's positive or negative will drive the answer to substitutes or complements. And then flipping on down here to the next chapter, chapter 6, price floors and price ceilings, you should be able to know what each of those are and how to interpret a price floor and price ceiling, whether it's binding or not binding. Also, in this chapter, we talk about taxes and who bears the burden of the tax incidence. Moving on to chapter 7, we use some welfare measures of economics, including consumer and producer surpluses. You add those up, you get total surplus. Chapter 8 looks at more details according to the taxes and how to determine the new price the buyers pay and the new price sellers receive. Taxes are not good for buyers or sellers. It drives down the quantity, it increases the price the buyers pay, and reduces the price the sellers receive. You should also be able to look at a graph with prices, with taxes, and how that affects deadweight loss. But let me quickly jump here to each of the homework assignments. This type of questions you might see on the test this coming Friday. The ability to interpret what these elasticity numbers mean. Know, for example, here in question 6, what happens if you have substitutes for motor oil. If there are substitutes, the consumers have options, and so they're said to be elastic. And this is talking about the elasticity of demand. So these are the type of things that you should be able to do. And here's another example of interpretation of one on question number 9. Elasticity of demand should be a negative there, negative 4.0. How would you interpret that negative 4.0 in terms of your price elasticity of demand? So these are some of the things that lots of elasticity stuff that tends to confuse students. This test is not easy. It's probably harder than your first test. So study, study, study. Here's from the next list of homework 6 now. We're looking at how to interpret an income elasticity. You have a 6% income increase leads to a 10% quantity demand change. What do you expect for your income number? Well, that certainly is positive. Your income is going up, your quantity demand is going up. Is this then, it's positive, is it a normal inferior good? Well, in this case, it would be a normal good. Here's another interpretation of one. Income changes and quantity demand changes. Here's a cross price elasticity, how that affects your how to interpret a cross price number. If they're negative, what does that mean for your cross price number? So lots and lots of elasticities, lots and lots of discussions on how to interpret these and what these numbers mean, and it gets very confusing. So make sure you take a look at your old homework assignments And so those are the first two, homeworks 5 and 6, but also let me pull up homework 7 here. Here's a typical question you might see, a graph like this of supply and demands and some different prices, and we could simply look at here and say, hey, what if we put at $4 we put a price floor? Okay, so can you interpret what a price floor $4 means? It means the price can't go below 4. If the price is a price floor at 4, what will be the price? And hopefully you'll realize the price floor of $4 is not binding, therefore the price would be 6. And a price floor at $4 would have no effect. Now let's switch it around and say, what if we have a price ceiling at 4? That means the price can't go above 4. That means the price would be 4. And then how many quantity would be traded in this picture here, figure 6-4? Well, in this case, the sellers would want to sell you 30. They would supply you with 30. The buyers would only want, at $4 would want to buy 70. Well, how many would get sold? Well, the smaller of those two numbers, or 30, would get sold. So if 70 are demanded and 30 are supplied, what do you have? Well, it's not equilibrium, clearly. In this case, you'd have a shortage. 70 want to get purchased, and 30 are available to be purchased. That leads to a shortage of 40 units. That's how you do a price floor, price ceiling. Just one example. And now let's flip on to the next homework, homework 8. And here's a picture that you might see in talking about welfare economics. And you should, in this figure 7-4, which area corresponds to the consumer surplus? Of course, the answer would be B. Which area corresponds to the producer surplus? Producer surplus, you should know what that means. And in this case, it's the difference between your price and the area above your marginal cost or supply curve. In this case, that would be area C. And then what area corresponds to your total surplus? Well, add your producer and total surplus. Add your producer and your consumer surplus, B and C, you get your total surplus. Okay? So here's producer surpluses, total surpluses. Here's more figures, that examples you need to work through to determine what producer surpluses are and total surpluses and consumer surpluses. So these figures you should be able to interpret and see what those all mean in terms of your consumer and producer surplus measures. And then the last homework you did, homework 9, dealt with taxes. And here's a nice example of this, figure 8-2. You're asked a series of questions about this. In this case, first, how big is your tax? Well, that's your vertical distance between points A and C in this graph, or difference between price P3 and P1. That difference is the amount of your tax. What portion of this tax do the buyers pay? If there's a tax in place, the price would rise from P2 to P3. So that would be the new price the buyers pay. What will be the price the sellers receive after this tax is imposed? That new price would be P1. So, to a quick recap, if you have a taxes, okay, by this distance between A and C on this figure 8-2, then we would see the price the buyers pay increased, the price the sellers receive decrease, and who's the winner from this tax? Well, the government. They get to collect the difference between P3 and P1 in terms of tax revenue every time they sell an item. And how many items do they sell? They sell Q1 of these items. So this is a quick recap on how to find taxes, but certainly look at the lecture, read the chapters, and also work those homework assignments. If you work the homework assignments and are doing poorly, you're getting 50%, 60% scores, that means you don't yet have a good handle on this material. You should continue working and review the material, review the videos, read over the notes that I posted, and work some more because you don't have it yet. Don't stop working if you're doing poorly on the homeworks. That will be a good indication of how you should do come test time. If you're doing bad on the homeworks, it's not going to be pretty on the test. If you're doing well on homeworks, that's a good sign that you are going a long way to mastering this material. Hey, good luck, guys, and well, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.